Hi everyone, my name is Matt, and today I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about pruning apple trees. But before we dive into the actual pruning, I wanted to go over some of the equipment I like to use when I prune fruit trees. So to start, my favorite tool are these hand pruners. These you'll use probably about 75 to 85% of the time for all your smaller branches. But when you get to be into some more mature trees, you can start to get into the loppers. This is a smaller set. And these are geared, so they help you with some of the tougher branches to cut. These are great. And then for some harder, larger, further to reach branches, you can use these longer loppers here. These kind of extend your reach a couple more feet. You can also use a ladder if you need to too, to get higher up into the tree. And then for your largest branches on some of your more mature trees, you're going to want to use a saw. You probably won't end up using this very much, but it's good to have for some of those bigger branches and some of those older trees. Now let's head out and get a hands-on look at some actual live demonstration pruning on some apple trees. This is going to vary depending on the maturity of the tree. Some of your younger trees that are only a couple years old aren't going to need much pruning, but after a few years they really need to start seeing some attention on a yearly basis. So the trees I have here today are probably about 8 to 10 years old. They've been planted in this location for about 7 or 8 years. So they're pretty mature, and these are a great example of how to prune when you have a tree that's kind of coming closer to maturity and starting to produce quite a bit. So the first things I look for in trees like this, the best rule of thumb is to first look for any diseased, damaged, or dead wood or branches and go in and remove any of that. Because these trees are younger, you're not going to see a lot of that in them. On some of your older trees, you're going to see more older, diseased, and damaged wood, and you'll go in and just remove that. And honestly, that can be done any time of year. If it's dead wood, it's not going to affect the tree whatsoever if you prune it in the middle of the growing season. But if you're doing any live cuts on any living parts, this is the time of year you want to do that. Typically, late winter, early spring, let the snow melt, make it easy on yourself to get out and about. But you want to do it before the buds for the leaves and the flowers start to swell for the new season. So typically for our area in central Maine, that's going to be late February through the month of March. So after I look for those bits, the next thing I'll do is go in and look for any branches that are growing either in towards the center of the tree or are crossing each other, and I'll go in and remove those. So looking at this tree right here, we'll start with some simple cuts. You can see this branch right here is rubbing against this other branch. So I'll go in and I'll remove this one. Got this branch right here that's growing kind of vertically and back in towards the center of the tree. So I'm actually going to remove this whole branch right here. And when you go in and cut like this, you want to go just above the branch collar. You can see kind of a little rounded, I'll see if I can find a better example in here. You can see kind of a little rounded bulge at the base of the branch. And what you want to do is go just above that and make your prune cut there. So this is a good example of some dead wood. This was damage from a deer that ate the buds off of this in the previous winter. And what happened is it died back quite a bit from that bite mark. So I'm just going to go in there. This is a nice healthy branch right here. So I'm going to go back and prune it right to that growth point. And this will become the new dominant branch with some nice health. I'm going to continue working on this tree, cutting anything I can find that's diseased, dead, or damaged out, as well as any of the branches, like I mentioned, that are crossing, that are growing back in towards the center of the tree, or that are growing pretty much straight vertical. Now, obviously, you're going to have your leaders, which will go up in a vertical form, but a lot of times you'll get on some of the outer branches, some of these shoots that go up straight as well. And these are never going to be great branches for supporting fruit. because they're not going to be as strong as these horizontal branches. So I'm going to go in and remove some of those as well. This is another thing to look out for too as well. So we've got 3 branches right here, really close together, all growing in the same direction. And what's going to happen is the upper branch will cast shade on these lower branches. So because of that, you have an increased disease risk because the lower branches are going to stay shaded all the time. And if you get moisture from rain, they don't dry out as quick. And fruit trees are especially prone to different foliar diseases. So what we want to do is go in and remove usually the weaker branches, or in this case, the lower branches, because they're going to be the ones that get shaded out from the upper branch. So I'm going to go in and just remove these lower 2, and you're left with this upper dominant branch. So the main goal is to remove all those unwanted branches that I've talked about. And the other thing to keep in mind too is you're really trying to increase airflow and sunlight into the center of this tree. Again, for the same purposes as I just mentioned for disease prevention, but also the more sunlight you can get into the center of the tree, the more flowers you're going to get and the more fruit production you're going to get. Another thing we like to try to do with these trees is try to maintain their size a little bit. These are all semi-dwarf varieties, and most apple trees you buy nowadays are semi-dwarf varieties. So they're typically going to stay under 12 to 15 feet tall at most, but we can kind of help control that size a little bit by maintaining the kind of outer shape and form of the tree. So you're going to always want to try to have a nice leader, but fruit trees are designed to be a tree that isn't as aesthetically pleasing as something like a maple in your yard. So a lot of times fruit trees aren't the prettiest to look at. They are designed to be more structurally sound to support fruit production. So when you go in for pruning, you can take your leaders back a little bit, but you want to make sure you don't take them back too far, because what's going to happen is if you cut your true leader back all the way to the old growth from the previous year, you're going to get water shoots that come up, and you're going to get a lot of leggy new growth each year, and it's just going to be a constant battle. So when I go in and I prune the leaders to maintain size, I like to come down maybe only about halfway down the leader stem itself and go just above a growth point and take it off there, and that'll slow that vertical growth down just a little bit. So the previous tree we were just working on is pretty close to being done, but I've got lots of others here that need quite a bit of work. As you can see, this one has quite a bit of growth in it, and this is going to have a lot of foliage that shades out the entire tree. So I'm going to go in and do a lot of thinning on this one. And then I've got about 10 others to do after this. Pruning style varies from person to person, but these are the general rule of thumb pruning techniques that I like to use to get you headed in the right direction when you're attempting to prune your fruit trees. Thanks for watching, and I hope you were able to learn a tidbit or two from this video.